I can call this meeting to order. Harlem Consolidated School District Regular School Board Meeting Monday, July 13th, 2020, 6 p.m. And we will start with roll call.
Okay, Dr. Flanagan.
Here.
Mr. Sterling.
Here.
Mr. Meister. Jill Brogan. Mrs. Meeks here. Mr. Barger.
Here.
Mrs. Brogan.
Here.
Mr. Meister.
Superintendent.
Chris Arduino, recording secretary.
Julie Morris, Superintendent.
Michelle Erb, Curriculum and Instruction.
Josh Rand, Business and Operations.
Scott Rollinson, Human Resources.
Okay, do we have the flag up? Are we doing the pledge that way tonight? I'm not able to see it.
I see it.
Everybody can see it?
Yep.
Okay.
I
I
pledge
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands,
Which is
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with justice for all.
law.
Okay, we need a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
Motion. Second.
I do have a couple of changes. We have no facility requests or student travel, so 10A1 and 10B2, and consent agenda item 11B and C.
Okay, a motion and a second for the agenda with those changes that are noted.
All right, Mr. Sterling,
Yes.
Mr. Meister, Jill Brogan, Mrs. Meeks, yes, Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
aye.
Dr. Flanagan.
Aye.
Now, is Jill or are they here? Oh, Jill Brogan,
Neither are gonna be here tonight.
they're not gonna be here? Okay.
That's correct. Okay, can we get a motion and a second to approve the board meeting minutes, regular and closed, from June 15th, 2020?
Motion.
Second. Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling.
Aye.
Okay, Julie or Chris, do you know, do we have any awards or recognition with Mr. Bloom?
We do not.
We do not. Okay, thank you. We do have several comments from the community that Dr. Morris is going to read to everyone.
I currently have 4 that I'm going to read aloud to put into the record. The first one is from Shauna Sterling, 7th grade life science teacher at the middle school. She has a series of questions that she would like to put on the record. And I'll read those. I don't think it'll take the 3 minutes, but if you remember, we have 3 minutes for public comment.
Correct, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Will the results of the parent and staff surveys be made public to parents and staff? Will the questions raised from the staff teacher surveys be made public with explicit answers to each of those questions? How are members of the teacher subcommittees that are making decisions to return to school chosen? Why are teachers now required to be at school 5 days a week, even in the event of implementing e-learning? This is different than the spring. HMS does not permit students to wear hats, hoods, and the like because students' identity is concealed. Given the state guidelines, student faces will be concealed with masks, which possess a safety issue within the dwelling. Again, how will the school ensure the safety of our staff and students? How do lockers work? Students are engaged to use their lockers and keep their book bags in there for safety purposes and to help free up space in classrooms. If students are not allowed to use lockers, not only will it be difficult to monitor items in backpacks, but will also crowd this classroom. In my time at HMS, there have been knives and airsoft guns found in backpacks. How will the district ensure the safety of our staff and students? Will backpacks need to be sanitized as well? If a student I am in contact with tests positive, will I need to quarantine? If so, do I lose 14 sick days? Will we be required to lose sick days if we test positive? How will social distancing work in classrooms with more than 10 to 15 students? The teacher's child needs to quarantine. Will the educator parent be required to use their sick days? Will teachers need to sign a waiver to work? Will students sign a waiver protecting teachers in the event a student gets sick while in their class? What happens to fire drills, active shooter drills, evacuation drills? These are done multiple times per school year and require close proximity. Who will be responsible for cleaning shared materials and supplies like computers? Will teachers be provided with the necessary PPE? Will the district provide masks for unprepared students? Will we be provided with the necessary cleaning? Chris, you may want to turn off your computer or your sound, sorry. PPE. If students are allowed the option to stay home, can teachers also opt to teach from home in order to be with their children? How can I clean all the desk chairs after a class leaves, but also use the 4-minute passing time to use the restroom and/or monitor the hallway? What will the transition between classes at the HMS look like, passing periods? How will teacher evaluations be handled? Will face shields be considered an acceptable face covering for students and staff? The district chooses to do some form of in-person and e-learning. Will the district hire more teachers so that there will be enough manpower to teach both in-person and e-learning classes? What will happen with classrooms that have tables and not individual desks, like science labs? Will the district put up barriers or provide desks? Will there be temperature checks upon entry for staff and students? Does the district have a plan to cover classrooms if there is a shortage in subs or teachers? What will be the procedure for students who are sent to the nurse with fevers or other COVID-19 symptoms? Will schools be hiring more nurses and custodial staff? Will there be specialized paid training for staff to prepare for the first day of school for all these changes? If a staff member or student comes down with a fever, will they be required to get tested for COVID-19 and provide the school with documentation of the results? Do families need to sign waivers of disclosure if they've been exposed, tested results? Do we violate privacy laws by asking? Will someone be sanitizing staff bathrooms between use, or will the staff members be required to do so? Can teachers who have breathing or anxiety issues be able to use face shields in place of masks? Will bathrooms have monitors to ensure only X amount of children enter at a time? If a student tests positive, what does that mean for the rest of the students in the classes? If a student in our class tests positive, will we be told? Will there be dual offices for nurses, one to handle COVID symptoms and another to handle first aid and other health issues? If students pretend to cough or sneeze on each other,
Julie, your microphone went off.
did you get that last one? If students pretend to cough or sneeze?
No.
Okay. Oh. If students pretend to cough or sneeze on each other or a staff member, how should this be handled at a disciplinary level? Thank you for reading through my questions and concerns. And normally we don't comment, but I just wanted to, since a lot of on these tonight, just because we're in the midst of all of this, there's two answers really to these questions. Many of these are going to be answered when we put out our guidebook, and we're continuing to put out more information as we go. So these will all be answered in that guidebook. The ones that wouldn't be might be those specifically the middle school. And so I will forward this to our building principal at the middle school, so she is also able to review the ones that are relevant to her while they're planning specifically for the middle school. So I know that people are very anxious and want to know the answers. We are giving an update tonight, and we will be providing those guidebooks by the end of this month. Along with earlier, we will be letting people know what our plan is for what the day will look like in general. So all of that detail will be in our guidebooks. The second comment is from Melissa Jordan. I would like to thank the school board and Superintendent Dr. Morris for their commitment to our community and our schools. I would like to suggest the board start meeting in person in a show of support to the teachers and students who are moving closer to in-person instruction. This should include allowing an audience which would wear masks and socially distance when possible. To help our learning community address their fears and concerns, set an example by being present in the various buildings as a show of support for the safety of in-person learning. Thank you for your time and consideration. I would suggest for board members that as we're organizing and preparing for the orientation sessions that we have at the beginning of the year, they of course will look different. Parts of it might be virtual, parts of it might be in person, and that might be a good time for the board to be at the school to greet people as they're, if you're interested in doing that. Also walking through at that first day when everybody's coming on campus would be another time that would be good. Those are just ideas for the board members to consider. The third one is from Jill Muradian. I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name. Hello, I am starting a new position as a paraeducator at Windsor Elementary School next month. I'm concerned about what will happen if a student or staff member tests positive for coronavirus. Will we have a self-quarantine for 14 days? And if so, will it be paid or unpaid? If it becomes district policy that we must self-quarantine for 14 days, then I believe it should be paid and that we should not have to use sick days, as many of us probably do not have 14 sick days available. Thank you for your time. I did forward this email to Scott Rollinson. He's going to follow up specifically with this paraeducator. And this information is also being put in the staff guidebook. And Scott's been working very carefully on this as far as also following the guidelines that this is really going to be dictated by the Winnebago County Health Department. So that'll be answered as well. Kelly Bask, I am a teacher at the middle school, and I can promise you that no one wants to be back to our crazy normal middle school day more than the teachers. But if we are still holding virtual meetings with adults who are responsible enough to keep on a mask, how is it even feasible to expect our students to keep masks on all day? And these are 11, 14-year-olds who have some understanding about the seriousness of this virus. What about younger kids? If everyone must wear a mask all day, are we really ready to be back in the buildings with hundreds of students? I think that's an interesting point that just came through. We just talked this morning, all of the meetings that I have in my building here during the day, I meet with people in person, but our virtual meetings, I think this person's talking about, are the planning sessions that we have. We did just talk this morning at one of those that we are planning to start having those in person so we can model being ready to go back, wearing masks and so forth, and getting used to that ourselves. Those are the 4 that I have. Does anyone else have any other public comments that came through?
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not. And just to reiterate what you said about the meetings, we had already talked and planned to return to board meetings in person starting in August. So this will be our last one.
Yes, unless the governor takes us backwards, but we're not sure if our normal venue will be appropriate or will be big enough to space us appropriately. But we will work that out if we have to move it and space us as well as allow the public to come in, because we're never sure how many public will be there. So anyway, that's a good point. Yeah. So that's our plan.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Aurand for approval of the bills.
All right, thank you. The total payables this period were $2,632,846.77. There were void checks of $3,320.56. There are two payrolls this period for a total of $5,568,487.80. The total expenditures of $5,201,334.57. Split out by fund, the education fund paid $5,462,932.81. The tort fund paid $1,019,653.01. The operations and maintenance fund paid $273,802.70. The transportation fund paid $1,103,412.74. The IMRF Social Security Fund paid $211,562.51. The Capital Projects Fund paid $129,970.80. Again, for total expenditures of $8,201,334.57. Are there any unanswered bill questions? That's it for the bill.
We got a motion and a second to approve the bills?
Motion.
Second.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling.
Aye.
Okay, with that, we will go to communication and committee reports, and I will start that off. Let's see, board monitoring report from the June 15th, 2020 meeting. Believe I received 3 of those by email, and they were all satisfactory. Our next regular board meeting is Monday, August 10th, 2020 at 6 p.m. The next education committee meeting, Wednesday, August 5th, 2020 at 6:30. Next policy committee meeting, September 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. And tonight we are recommending to approve first reading of policy update recommendations from the June 22nd, 2020 policy meeting. And we also have a recommendation to dispose of audio recordings more than 18 months old, which would be January 2018 through December 2018. And additionally, I have spoke to all the board members individually. I have also talked to Dr. Morris. So you are all aware that I'm actually not engaged anymore. Wedding was Saturday, so I'm now married. We've been looking for a house for many months. Thank you, Mike. For many months. And we've actually finally found it. And unfortunately, we started moving in probably 2 days ago, and we're still working at it. But unfortunately, it's not in the Harlem School District. It took us a long time to find one that checked all the boxes that we wanted. This will be our forever home, so we didn't want to sell ourselves short. So the unfortunate reality is I have to submit my resignation effective the end of this meeting tonight. It's been a pleasure working with each and every one of you, and I will miss you greatly. Well, and that ends my report. Mrs. Sue Brogan, your report.
Congratulations on your wedding nuptials and on your house. I think my own opinion is I think we're going to miss you, and I think we're losing a dedicated board member.
Thank you.
Sorry to lose you.
Thank you.
Next business service committee meeting is Wednesday, August 5th, 2020 at 6 p.m. And if I can just note that, yes, we've had several emails questioning going back to school and what that looks like. And if I could just say that we don't know what that's going to look like. We're doing the best we can to prepare to have that go smoothly for students and staff. However, we need to understand too that currently throughout the United States, the numbers are going up and down in different states. We're going to have to follow whatever the guidelines are and whatever the recommendations from the health department is. We're not going into this that no matter what happens, we're doing this, and that. We have several contingency plans that everybody's been working on, and that everybody's been working very hard to do what's best for our students. And we believe that what's best for them is to be in the classroom learning that way. And so just let you know, there's nothing set in stone, and we definitely have several things going on to be prepared for it. And that ends my report.
Thank you very much, Sue. Very well said. Mrs. Meeks, your report.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And to you, Mr. Barger, I want to wish you continued success. You will be greatly missed, and that's with a big capital G.
Thank you.
You've done a wonderful job on the board, and these X amount of years, I appreciate all the help that you have given me when I needed help and questions and everything. So I just want to wish you continued success, and congratulations on your wedding and your house, and blessings to you and your new bride.
Thank you.
And then, as I want to piggyback off of Sue, I just want everyone to know that this is something that we have never experienced. And I want to just say to administrators, staff, and everyone, you are greatly appreciated. I know it's hard, but people just have to just take time and hold your breath. And I know we want our students back in school, but life is too short, and we don't want to just go back and start bringing everybody back and then having it worse than what it was. Just take each day at a time, follow the guidelines, and everything will work out. But we just can't jump into anything. But I would like to say that administrators, staff, faculty, everybody are doing the best they can and following the guidelines from the CDC, the governor, everything, to try to make sure that we can have a good 2020, 2021 school year. You can see I'm still backtracking because this pandemic has just affected all of us. This is a new something to all of us we've never experienced, and I hope it never comes again, not in our lifetime. But that's all I want to say, and it's great to be back this evening to see all you guys' wonderful faces. So have a good rest of the week, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Larry.
Stewart, go ahead.
And I want to piggyback off Evelyn. I'm sorry, I had that in my notes and didn't say it. I also would like to thank administration and staff and everybody else who's been involved with the planning. There's been a lot of hard work put into it, and I appreciate everybody's hard work and going above and beyond trying to figure out the right solutions. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sterling, now you're set.
Yeah. Larry, I just want to say that you have been an asset to the board and to me as a new member coming on. I'm supposed to have to reach out to you soon and often to pick your ideas on different things, just because you've been on so long that you know what's been on in the past to what we should be doing in the future. Congratulations for you and your wife. That's awesome. And when you told me about the house, I said that could have made a better choice. So I think all in all, this is gonna be good for you, and we're gonna be missing you greatly.
Thank you.
For my report, I have nothing for business services. I do have something that I'll talk to Josh about later, to do with disposal of hazmat stuff that I've been helping Jeff Schoonmaker with, but that'll go back to business services, and we'll come back to the board with. I want to thank the administration and the teachers that are on these committees. You guys are doing an amazing job. The teachers and all the other staff that are voicing their concerns, but not just their concerns, but just questions that to be answered will help everybody. We're not in a rush to get back, but we are in a time crunch because obviously school starts in 1 month. So in a time that, believe me, as a business owner and not knowing what the next day has to entail, but for a district with staff, employees, food, this is a monumental task to just try to figure out the best way and the safest way for staff and children to come back to learn. And it is a necessity that we get the best mix, whatever mix that happens to be. But it's going to take a group and community effort. So I'm ready to start pulling on that rope in the right direction. That ends my report.
Thank you. Dr. Flanagan, your report.
So Larry, following your dream comes with a trade-off a lot of times. And, I expressed to you already that, this is such a positive trade-off to have the joy of being married and being in your forever home. And, we will be well, but we will really miss you. And I know I say that from a board member who's only been on the board for 6 months. I just really admire your leadership and your tenacity and your ability to keep us all moving in a really positive direction. And of course, that's not to underscore how much we will miss that leadership. So, just know that you're really appreciated more than I think you even know from all of us, and especially the collective. And while I'm sad for us, I'm really happy for you to be able to live that. So just thank you for your leadership. I too just really greatly echo the sentiments. First and foremost to the staff of the Harlem District. Since March, we've been under this real crisis and this test of what we can do in the face of something unknown. I think people are really getting weary. I know that I am, and I'm getting worried daily that, the game will change again. And I do think that, like Evelyn said, we have to take a step back. I've been able to spend more time as a family. I think a lot of us have had that opportunity, and to really just look at the positives that this situation does bring in the face of pandemic, not to underscore the amount of hurt that it's brought as well. But we are in uncharted territory. So, decisions will be made, but I think it's important to know that it's a very fluid situation, and it will continue to be a fluid situation. And everybody has got the students and families' best interest in mind. And we just need to see how it develops. I'm proud of our community that we are in that phase 4 region and got there relatively quickly. So again, Harlem community, stay strong. And I know that we're all in this together, and we just need to really keep that sentiment because that's the only way we're going to get through this is together. And so we have to capitalize on those times when, we can look to each other for support instead of any divisions that unfortunately do rage within communities these days. And with that, I also end my report.
Thank you. Dr. Erb.
Thank you. I have 2 items this evening, but before I start, I too would like to congratulate you, Larry, and thank you for all that you've done for the Harlem District. And you will definitely be missed. So best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
My first item tonight is the linking to opportunities MOU. This MOU is dual credit courses with Rock Valley College. I presented this at the Education Committee meeting last month. For the 1920 school year, we had 3 courses that, I would actually call it 2 courses that we had dual credit. The reason why I say 2 is because college biology had one part and the lab had another part. But the other was medical terminology. This next year, we are going to have the biology and the lab, medical terminology, but we are also looking to include Introduction to Business, Principles of Marketing, Network Essential, and A+ Essentials. So we have been constantly working with Rock Valley College. I give Shelley Wagner a lot of credit. She meets with them weekly, at least when before everything hit, it was a weekly meeting. And she and the teachers at the high school and administrators have been continuing to work on those pathways that lead right into Rock Valley College to provide our students with additional opportunities to receive dual credit. Each of these courses the charge is $50 for the course, not the credit, and $50 per credit would be a great deal, but it's $50 per course with Rock Valley. And so tonight I am asking the Board of Education to approve this recommendation so that we can provide our students with additional dual credit opportunities. Does anyone have any questions? All right, my second item was also presented at the Education Committee meeting last month, and that is the Harlem School District's Consolidated Plan. One of the things that changed last year is we as a district were required to put together a plan and turn it into the state. So in the past, before that, with any of our grant money, we had to answer a series of questions within each individual grant. But what the change was, instead of looking at grants in silos, it is how are we going to use the money collectively and work towards the same set of goals. We as a district were very fortunate because we went through our Vision 2020 process that was led by Dr. Morris and Mr. Bloom. And through there, we came up with our long-range plan. And you couldn't line anything up better than what we have. So the questions that we need to answer for this consolidated plan almost perfectly line up with our district plan. And so it's really nice how everything works together. There's also a component in regards to our children in care and then in transportation for them. So students who are part of the foster care system. And so we have all of those components in there. We've reached out to our area private and parochial schools and done consultations with them. And so tonight I am asking you to also approve that so that it can be submitted to the state. Any questions?
Dr., you did take consensus on those two items as well, correct?
Yes, both of those items at the last Education Committee meeting, we took consensus, and then I'm bringing it to the board this evening for approval. If there are no more more questions, that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mr. Aurand.
All right, thank you. Larry, I just want to say I'm happy for you and wish you the best in your next phase of whatever that is. So we will miss you around here.
Thank you.
My first item tonight is a recommendation to approve a resolution declaring surplus property and authorizing disposal of the property for Loves Park, the middle school, the admin center, H9, the high school, and Parker Center. Are there any questions on the surplus? Okay. Next is a recommendation to accept the May 2020 Treasurer's Report, and I went through that at Business Services. This will be the last monthly report until the audit later in the fall. So, are there any questions on the Treasurer's Report?
No.
My next two items are with the same consultant. There is a memo that covers both of them. So item number 4 is a recommendation to approve an independent contractor agreement with Lynn Liston as an infant mental health consultant to provide consultation and training to parent educators, program leadership, and families for the FY21 school year at a cost of $125 an hour, not to exceed $3,000. Item 5, I'll read it just so it's on the record, is a recommendation to approve an independent contractor agreement with Lynn Liston Consultant to provide consultation and professional development to the Preschool for All program staff and program leadership for the FY21 school year at a cost of $125 an hour, not to exceed $3,000. Like I said, the memo covers both. So this is being paid for out of our grant funds and is a requirement of the grant. Is there a question on either of those recommendations tonight?
No, I just want, I'm glad you said that they were requirements.
And we've used this this vendor before.
Yep.
And this is without an increase, correct? And we discussed that.
Right. Yep. If there are no questions, that's my report tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Rollinson, your report.
Thank you, Larry. Let me echo what everybody has said tonight. You've been an awesome leader
You've led by action and example, and we are certainly going to miss your leadership. So we wish you the best. Take care, and thanks for everything you've done.
Thank you.
You bet. Tonight, we do not have an addendum. So tonight I'm recommending a total of 6 transfers, a total of 18 employments, and informational purposes only tonight, we have accepted 10 resignations since we last met. Any questions? Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Morris, your report.
Okay, Larry, thank you so much for everything. I think you've been on the board for most of my tenure as the superintendent, so you will be missed. You'll be missed a lot. It's been a really great having you, sitting next to you most of the time, bringing you gum when you needed it because you make sure you had fresh breath. So anyway, I wish you all the best, and you certainly will be missed. And thank you for everything.
Thank you very much.
All right, so I have 4 items this evening. The first one is the 3rd and 4th quarter stakeholder engagement report that Jason is going to give to you.
Good evening, and Larry, again, we wish you well. We thank you for your commitment to the students and staff of the district, and we hope to see you around in the future, and hope to see you at some sporting events as well. So this evening, I would like to present the donations for 3rd and 4th quarter. I am going to actually postpone the department report of this and my presentation until the next meeting in August. And so for the quarterly donations, you'll see there that it's actually a smaller list than normal, but as I'm sure you can believe, the pandemic had played a big part in that during the 4th quarter. A lot of people were not donating items or goods during that time. And so, but I do want to highlight just a few donations. We've seen an increase, it seems like, over the past few years in regards to organizations providing money to offset some of the negative lunch balances. I think it's a way for some companies to really kind of support families. And so you'll see there that we received $1,000 from IMA Automation out of Loves Park. And then we also received just over $1,800 from the Illinois State Credit Union as well. And so, and then kind of a cool one that I wanted to point out too as well is a car donation from Bruce Jacobson. Every so often we get donated vehicles for our automotive department, and that's obviously a great help to that department. And so again, we thank all of these donors, all of these individuals that support our students and our staff. And so that ends this part of my report. And again, I will do my actual department report at our next meeting.
Thank you, Jason. All right, the second item I have is a Freedom of Information Act request. I feel like we haven't had one of these for a while. It was dated June 30th, 2020 from Smart Procure, requesting the purchasing documents from 3/16/20 to current. And the district's response was dated the 30th of June, 2020. All right, my next item, I'm going to share my screen. This is my first time ever, and I practiced a lot. So let's see how I do. You see it?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So what we'd like to do this evening is there's a few of us are going to give some updates on where we are with our planning. I did include a memo on the board agenda on Thursday when we posted the agenda. And so we're not going to go through, well, we're going to go through some of the updated data on the family data, and then we're going to talk a little bit. Mickey's going to talk a little bit about the committees, the committee structure that has been put together, And then Josh is going to share some of the personal protection equipment that we've been doing and that he and his crew have been working on very hard. And then finally, we're going to talk next steps on where we're going with our plan. So I'm going to turn the survey part of this over to Jason because he did a lot of the work with communicating that out and getting that data. So first off, I'm sorry, I had this slide I was supposed to go through. These are just the requirements that were put out June 23rd for 2020. These are for phase 4 of reopening the state. So these 5 bullets, no matter what we do, we have to do these things. So we're required the use of appropriate personal protection, including face masks. So I know a lot of people are very concerned about face masks being worn all day. This is really a non-negotiable at this point. This is what we have to do based on the governor's direction, the state of Illinois, or the ISB and so forth. We are still under the no more than 50 people gathering in one space. We're required to have social distancing as much as possible. And with our face masks, that takes care of, I think, that as much as possible. I think it was the reasoning behind that. We require that schools conduct system screenings and temperature checks, or require that individuals self-certify that they are free of symptoms before entering our schools. And that's something that we are working on, and that will be part of the protocol that we put in place. And then finally, we require an increase in school-wide cleaning and disinfection. And as I said to you, Josh is going to go not only over what we're doing for PPE, but what we're doing for additional cleaning and disinfecting. So to start out, now I'm going to turn it over to Jason to talk about the parent surveys. There's a number of surveys in here that we have done that has been used by the committees in informing their work. And we're going to talk most specifically about one this evening. So Jason, go ahead.
Yep. So this is actually our most recent parent survey that we sent out to our families. And so as Julie mentioned, we do have a handful of surveys that have gone to both staff and our families, but this was one that was really and has been really influential in the decision-making process for our committees. And so this is the parent survey from July 10th, and it's actually updated as of July 10th. We've updated the numbers to be the most current. So if you notice that any numbers are slightly different than what was in the board memo that was posted on Thursday, that's because we actually updated them so that they reflect the most current numbers possible. You'll also see that we had 2,153 total respondents. That equals about 55% of our families. So a respondent is a family, not a student. And so we have about 3,900 families in the district. And so we did have just slightly over half of our families respond to the survey. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the questions that were asked at each level and just, I'll kind of go through each one. They're similar questions, really focusing on what our in-person blended learning would look like, but then also the daycare question. So for the early childhood, we asked the question, what is your comfort level with sending your student 5 days per week? And so we ranked this from 1 to 4. And so you're seeing the percentage of 3s and 4s that were responded, which is comfortable and very comfortable. So we had 66.6%. And you'll notice actually that throughout the grade levels, that tends to be kind of right around the average at all levels for comfort when it comes to in-person instruction. Second question was comfort level regarding their students in a blended model. And so we gave the example with this question that potentially something where you would maybe do two days of in-person instruction and 3 days of remote learning instruction. And so that's what the blended example was given for this question. You can see here that 59.8%. And then lastly, with early childhood, we asked if daycare would be an issue with the blended model. 33% of our respondents said that daycare would be an issue for them if we were to do something where it's a blend of in-person and remote learning. The next slide should be our elementary. And so here we asked what the comfort level was with sending students 5 days per week for full days. 65.1% said they were comfortable or very comfortable. With the comfort level with sending 5 days per week for only 5 hours. As we know that the guidance from ISB is that whether it's remote learning or in-person learning, we are required to fulfill at least a 5-hour day of instruction. And so 65.3% of families said that they were comfortable with that. If we have the follow-up to that 5-hour day question with daycare, would daycare be an issue? For a 5-hour day, and 38.5% of our families said that it would. And then we asked the question about comfort level with a blend, again, giving the example that you would potentially be like 2 days of in-person instruction and 3 days of remote. We had about 67.1% there that were comfortable with that. Again, with the follow-up then, would daycare be an issue with the blended model? And 37% of our families said that daycare would be an issue. The next survey is the middle school. So we asked what the comfort level was with a traditional schedule, 5 days per week. So essentially what we were looking like before the pandemic broke out. 60% were comfortable with that. With a block schedule, 5 days per week, 62%. And I will add to that the reason we asked that question is because when we're looking at our schedules, we're looking at transitions, especially at the middle school and high school level, where you have a lot of students in those buildings. Transitions and the health and safety as kids are passing and that kind of stuff is obviously a big part of the discussions that we've been having. And so we wanted to see what that comfort level would be if we did a block where it would reduce the number of transitions that would occur during the school day. And so that's why this question was asked at the middle school and at the high school level. Comfort level with a blended model, again, giving these same examples before, is 69.9%. And then even at the middle school level, we had 17.4% of families that said that daycare would be an issue for them if we were to choose a blended model where students were home a few days a week. And then lastly, we obviously asked the high school families, and the comfort level of block 5 days per week was 67.7%. And so again, that's something that we've did years ago. We had a block schedule. And again, this is about reducing transitions. Because as you can imagine, when we're having these conversations at the middle and high school, we're really thinking about lunch period. We're thinking about the switching of classes and the interactions that are taking place that you just don't have at the elementary level because most of our elementary classrooms, the kids stay with the same teacher all day. So, and then we asked the question again with the comfort level with a blended model, and we had 72.5% of families that were comfortable with the blended, using the same example as before. And so, in which we could figure that being that kids are older. We did not ask the daycare question at the high school level, just as the students are older, but it's still something that we need to consider as we make decisions is what is our family's comfort level with having their child of any age at home part of the week.
Any questions for Jason on the parent survey data?
With the block scheduling, are you guys considering staggering the passing periods with the blocks? Since you can only have 50 kids in the hallway at a time?
I don't know if Julie or Mickey want to answer that. I can.
Those are, well, go ahead, Mickey. You've done most of the work on that, Cody.
They're trying to figure out the bell schedule. At the middle school, they feel a lot more comfortable looking at bell schedule because you can have the 7th and 8th grade be at different times. One thing that was discussed was having arrows, ways to separate the hall so that students were moving in similar directions and possibly needing to change the passing time to permit enough time for students to get from place to place. So that is something that they are trying to work through. Once they know which model, they'll have a better idea of what adjustments need to be made.
Do we also have something for when kids will be going into school? Since they like to congregate in front of doors in certain areas, for us to consider going for the middle or elementary all the way to high school, how we're going to get kids into the building in different groups.
Right, we're going to have to use multiple entrances in all of our buildings, and have people stationed at those different entrances.
Okay.
Because we're also having to do the
Okay.
temperature check or whatever we're doing there as well. Yep,
And our normal security protocols.
exactly. Yep. Any other questions for the parent survey? Okay, Dr. Erb, do you want to talk? I know that we gave a very detailed list of all of the different committees that we have who are working diligently. And so if you just kind of want to talk generally about, the structure of how you did these committees, that would be great.
Sure. So, as far as committee members went, we tried hard to get a variety of individuals or backgrounds, because you want multiple perspectives when you are trying to make some decisions. The committees consist of department chairs, union leadership, administrators, and also some teachers who are working on their administrative endorsement. Figured there's no experience quite like what we're going through right now, plus they're able to share that teacher perspective at the same time. We kind of went through the guidebook looking at, from the state, looking at what did they have as areas that we needed to consider. And then also attended a few different webinars and came up with our list of different committees of things we need to work on. And I have to thank every member who's on these committees, because we have a planning committee first that consists of 28 individuals, and they help facilitate these different subcommittees. And then on the subcommittees, there's additional people on many of these subcommittees, additional department chairs, like I said before, the union leadership and administrators. And these people can be on 1 to 5 subcommittees, so they're meeting constantly. I personally am spending most of my time working with the elementary and the secondary subcommittees. And I can tell you that as we've been working through things, what comes out of a lot of them is another subcommittee. For example, we were talking about what are essential materials, items for classrooms so that we can maximize space. But as we sat there and tried to work things through at the secondary level, it was determined that we needed one for lab classes, so for our science and our CTE, well-being, our foods classes. We needed to have a subcommittee for our fine arts classes at the secondary level, because your department chairs, one taught music and one taught art, but we also have band, and we needed to think through all of those. And so we end up having, and physical education for the middle and high school coming together, because their space looks completely different. So through a lot of these subcommittees, we are finding that we need to create additional subcommittees to get the perspective from people who are directly involved, while still trying to balance and make sure that the groups stay at a size manageable enough that we continue to move forward. So really, we're trying to look at things from every different perspective, looking at the guidebook. We had sent out some teacher surveys, which I think are coming up later. We're talking about maybe a little bit, but sharing all of those questions that the teachers have had on those teacher surveys, because we asked, what factors would you like us to consider? And then we asked what questions would go on a frequently asked questions page, so that everybody could see what questions people have, so we could think of things, that maybe somebody else has thought of and we haven't. So again, I just would like to thank all of them for the amount of time, but these committees are meeting on a regular basis and really trying to think everything through and hear what people's perspectives are.
Any questions for Dr. Erb on the committee structure?
No, but I do have a comment. Dr. Erb, this again just underscores how dedicated our Harlem staff is. So thank you for leading that. But please pass along my thanks to the teachers that are on the committee as well, because everybody knows that summer still is a lot of work, and this summer is even more work. So just thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got to commend the way you guys are breaking down into the smaller teams to really focus in on it. Just that just shows your guys' expertise, and thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. Erb?
Nope, that she's just, her and her team, they're greatly appreciated. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, there's one more slide that I forgot. So, Jason, do you want to jump back to the survey? This is the last one, I think, right? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is just one other survey. Obviously we've mentioned that we've done some staff surveys where we've allowed them to provide comments and input, and so when you get that type of feedback, it's not easy to just place it on a slide. And so I will say that, and I think it's already been mentioned, that we have been sharing that with our committees and providing the survey results to all the individuals that are part of these decisions. Part of the committees are actually getting the full responses. They're able to read through the information that's being shared so that everybody has a chance to have a voice in the decisions that are being made. So this is one other survey that was sent out earlier in the summer. And we had 1,600 respondents for this one. And really this was more about, trying to feel out where are people at and where are families at in regards to sending their kids back. I do want to add one piece to the slides that I had shared before. We recognize that, and the reason we were really trying to come to a point where we can make a decision on what the learning structure or learning plan is going to look like is because we recognize that we have a lot of information that we still need to get from families. And so once we're at a point where our committees can say, this is what it's going to look like at the elementary, middle, and high school levels, we then have to go back to families and find out officially, are they going to choose remote learning or are they going to choose in-person instruction? And so, we're really trying to push to get something that we can share to our families that kind of give them an overview of what things will look like for remote learning and for in-person instruction. But that's going to be the big push because a lot of the conversation, even today in the elementary subcommittee that I was a part of, was really dependent upon who's showing up. And so when we talk about spacing in our classrooms and we talk about desks and we talk about all these different things, ultimately, in order to make the best decisions possible, we need to find out exactly who's coming back. And so, yes, we have our numbers from families that have registered, but we're going to, as soon as we make a decision, we're going to have to go back to our families and ensure that every family has told us whether or not they plan to send their student in person or remote. And so there's a lot of work to do and a lot of reaching out, a lot more information that we need from our families. But this is just the preliminary that we had sent out early in the year. And you can see there that we had a large majority of our families that were just kind of waiting on what is the plan going to look like. And so, as far as sending their kid back, we had 33% that said yes. And as you could see from the survey results that I just shared, we had about 2/3 across the board of our families that were comfortable or very comfortable with having their kid be a part of some sort of in-person instruction. So we've seen that shift a little bit. And again, as more information comes out, obviously we're targeting those maybes and making sure that they feel comfortable to make the best decision for them and their family. We also asked a question about reliable internet and then transportation as well. And again, these are things that we're going to have to go back to families with once we have a plan decided for in-person and remote learning so that we can really make sure that we're meeting all the needs of our families. But we know the transportation is going to be something that we're going to have to work through, making sure that we find, work within the capacity limits. And then obviously for our families that choose remote learning, we want to make sure that they have the tools, the internet capacity, all that kind of stuff to make sure that they can support their students at home. So this was, again, preliminary, but a lot of these questions are things that we're going to have to go back and get final answers from our families with.
Any other questions for Jason?
I have a question, Jason. In listening to this, my assumption is the parent survey for whether or not they're coming back or not, that went out back when we were probably in stage 2 or 3.
That was actually in June. So it was early on. I don't think we were in 4 yet. I think we were still in stage 3, but it was right around the time of some of the guidance that was coming out from ISB. And so it was still pretty preliminary in the matter of what things we're looking at that point in time. So obviously a lot changes as we go through these phases of the reopening plan, but this should have been right before we went into phase 4.
And then the other survey about in-person learning and stuff, was that closer to the phase 3, phase 4 that we were in?
Right. So the comfort level, the one that I just shared with you, yes, that was a recent survey that we sent out. We've had it open for about 2 weeks, I think. I don't remember exact date off the top of my head, but yes, that was after we went into phase 4. Maybe Mickey or Julie can give us the date.
It was open from July 3rd through the 10th.
Correct. So, so when we actually go through that process, once we make a decision as a committee, we're going to probably use Skyward Family Access so that we can easily pull and determine, so our buildings know who has responded, who hasn't responded, because we're going to have to really push hard quickly in order to plan classrooms, teacher assignments, all that kind of stuff. We have to know from every single family, and so. That's why it's important for us to kind of keep moving, because we're going to need some time to make sure that every family is communicated with, we get their response. So we've got, like I said, a lot of work ahead of us.
When do you expect to have some more like what the final version would be?
Julie, Dr. Morris is going to talk about that in the next slide. She's going to talk a little bit about our time frame. I'll let her share that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and do that now, and then we'll let Josh, because it's kind of, it all refers to what we're talking about now. And then Josh can talk about PPE stuff and cleaning after that. So our next steps, we are, as a superintendent group, we've been meeting throughout the summer as well to talk about our plans and to see what are some components of our planning that we can be similar, but what is just going to be based on our own district. And in the end, each district has to make their own decision, but we're meeting just to talk about all the different options, kind of like our planning committees have been meeting as well, just to see what people are doing and so forth. So we are meeting, we're going to share with Dr. Martell what our planning committee is looking at. And so we're going to share that with her specifically. And then the superintendents are meeting with her on Friday, the 17th. And she's going to talk about what components are in our plans, if there's any new health updates, to talk about best practices when it comes to the safety part of it. And so she's met with us a couple times as well, but this is one I just want her to take one more look at what we're thinking, and then we'll bring that back and make that final decision with our committee, our planning committee that Dr. talked about, and then put that information out to everybody. So we hope to have that done by the end of this week. Our original goal was having our plan done by July 16th, so we're right on that. Now all of the details, this will be an outline of what the structure will look like. All of the details then will be in that, in the guideline, in the guidebooks that we're putting together, which our goal is to have that by the end of the month with all the details. Because now that once we make that decision as to what the structure will look like, then the teams have to get really detailed on what the remote learning plan will look like. And then what would our in-person learning model, how is that going to be structured specifically? So all of the ideas and all of the things that the subcommittees have been considering and talking about, then that'll be all put to the plan. The next then is that we will then inform the staff and the parents of the model and what they will look like. And then that next one is the survey that Jason was talking about. We do need to know exactly what parents' decisions are. And the decision, if the parent decides to do remote learning, that'll be on a semester basis. So we can have people coming in and out. But if a parent chooses to do the remote learning, they will be able to make the decision to come back or stay on remote learning for second semester. But once that decision is made, and that'll be clearly shared with them so they know exactly up front that that is one of the parameters. Then we will put our guides out. We'll have our FAQ, most of the FAQ questions that we've been receiving from people, and a lot of what you had seen in the questions and the public comments today will be answered in the detailed plan. So there will be a student, a family guide, which will talk about the student parameters, and then there will be a staff guide. And there's going to be one each for staff, one each for students for the in-person, and then there'll be one each for staff and families for the remote learning. So we got a lot of guides going on, but they'll all be posted on the website that Jason's been keeping up to date on our COVID website, and other places will email and all the other communication venues that we've been using. We will also need to adjust our school calendar. One of the reasons is because the governor just recently declared that Election Day is a holiday. So we need to add a holiday to our calendar. And then we also have up to 5 remote learning planning days that we are able to utilize. And so we will be looking at the calendar to see how we're going to structure that, to make any changes in our days and so forth. So that we plan to bring to the board at the August 10th board meeting so that we can ask for your approval on that on the 10th of August. So the calendar is all up to date. Those are our next steps plan. Do you have any questions for me?
Should we have a meeting before that?
I don't know that we, with the guidebooks being done, I don't know that we will need to, but we've talked about that. So if we need to have like a little earlier, maybe right at the beginning of August.
Just to get parents, just to get parents on the time.
Yeah, we will ask to put together a meeting if we think it needs to occur soon.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a good question. Anything else? Sorry, I'm talking too much. Okay, with that then, I'll turn over to Josh to talk about all of our PPE and our cleaning and sanitation that he and his crew have been working on.
All right, thank you. So we've had a lot of questions, obviously, about PPE and sanitation, what it's going to look like. So I included a list here. I was just going to kind of run through that, what we're planning procedurally, and then if you guys have any questions, please feel free. So pretty early on in the process, we ordered 15 Victory electrostatic backpack disinfectant sprayers for the classrooms, and those just came in the other day. So that's going to be part of our nightly sanitation plan on how to disinfect the buildings. So that will be important. We did order 86 of the handheld disinfectant sprayers for the buses, as we need to disinfect in between groups of kids, and then at night. So those are pretty easy to use since they're already walking to the back of the bus. They'll do that on the way forward to disinfect that. Early on in March, right before we closed, or right at that time, we ordered 450 dispensers of Purell and a large quantity of the bagged Purell that go into those dispensers. So the dispensers were coming today, and the Purell should be coming this week, maybe next week. So that's on the way. Last week we did get 44 16-ounce containers of Purell, which are cool. Home Depot also sent us 240 16-ounce hand sanitizers, but after we've used them, they need to go back. They are not to the Purell quality, so we're going to send those back. When we ordered the backpack sprayers, we also ordered 200 cases of alpha disinfectant to use in those sprayers, and the Home Depot rep said that should be good for a couple of years worth of spray. So that's good. We did receive 300 packs of hand sanitizing wipes. These are alcohol wipes. So we have a total of 15,000 of those. So those can be used for general surface disinfection or for spaces that don't have the hand dispensers for the Purell. We've received 6,000 disposable masks. I have another 4 coming maybe tomorrow. So that gets to 10,000 disposable masks. We've received 3,000 adult masks with a plan to give 2 reusable masks to staff, and then have a plan for substitutes also in the building. We've received 2,000 reusable elementary student masks with the goal of getting 2 per student. So we have a little bit more ordering to do there. We have 400 N95 masks and 50 N95 masks. So the hardest one to get has been the Clorox wipes, and we did get 138 containers of those from Staples, who has done awesome trying to get us materials. All of other vendors combined have sent 0 Clorox wipes. So those are hard to find. I'm hoping to get 400 or 500 of those by the time school starts, but there's not many of those around. We have 1,700 face shields. We've ordered some initial thermometer, the touchless thermometers, because we're testing those out to see which one's worth of those. And we have been discussing the possibility of air purifiers in the classroom that can filter down to 0.1 microns. So we did order 2 of those today, and they will be here Monday for us to test out and see if that's an option we want to go with. Most of this PPE stuff, we're going to do an initial shipment to the schools, and then everything else is going to be checked into the warehouse that the buildings can then just put in PO requisitions when they need refills of those different items. And we have a bunch, I didn't put gloves on here, but we have about 10,000 gloves. And we have some orders in process for more gloves to come into, and then we'll order some kind of gallons once we have a better idea of what we need for gallons. So the backpack sprayers, like I said, our plan is to disinfect the buildings every other day. With the buildings that don't get the full disinfectant electrostatic spray at night, will still be surface clean like they were as we started to wrap up school. With 1 million square feet, we believe we can get done every other day. And there was a recommendation following this one to hire up to 3 custodians to help with that. Because with our current staff, we can't clean that 500,000 square feet a night of additional space. So I think that's most of the PPE items. And a lot of these may not be final figures, but as these plans change, my hope is that we get to a close enough point where if we need to just add a little bit here, a little bit there, I'm not ordering 20,000 masks for tomorrow. We have, a good portion of them in stock. And a lot of these things have been some of them have been fairly easy to get. And if they're in stock, I can normally get them next day. So have a little bit of flexibility there. Any questions?
The N95, K95, is that going to be for our nurses, or what do we have a direction for?
Yeah, so we're kind of working that into the plan, definitely with the nurses, and then we'll come up with kind of how that works. Because they are really only 1-day use, it's not a realistic plan to continually provide those because they're about $4 a piece for the N95s. So we'll have to really figure out where and when we utilize those.
No, I get you. So if we're going to be sending the sick kids to one location.
Yeah, there'll definitely be situations where those are appropriate. And so that the N95 400s was one order of those, and I wanted to make sure we had some in case something pops up and we need those and stuff.
And this is above and beyond what the government is supposed to send for students and teachers, correct?
Yeah, so they're supposed to send 1 mask. So if we provide 2 reusables and they provide 1, and I think a good portion of staff and families will have their own, but if they don't, there'll be 3 here. All we've seen from the governor all I've seen is a survey in terms of how many we need. I haven't seen anything else yet. So we can get these and stuff, and whenever those show up.
And we also have a disposable mask for people who forget. You may have said that, but so we have a lot of those, so people will have that as well. We did buy the face shields when we thought that everybody could wear them with no masks. So we got lots of face shields, but you can wear, some people want to wear them as well as the mask. So that option is there as well.
I do feel like we've done a pretty good job getting as much of this in as we can and getting prepped for whatever the scenarios are. So we will keep plugging away at that.
Any questions?
Sorry.
No. Were you going to say something?
No, I was saying for you.
Oh, okay. Any other questions for Jack? Okay, with that then, we have, Scott certainly isn't off the hook. So he's got a lot of staff things that he's working through. He's working through FMLA issues. He's working through all of the guidelines that the staff need to follow, the rules he needs to follow, the guidance from ISB as well as the Winnebago County Health Department. And so he's working and his crew is working diligently on that. And so we do have a recommendation this evening to increase it's actually the same thing as in the memo that I put in the in a separate memo from Scott, or that he put in a separate memo from him, so it didn't get lost. But he's going to talk through the recommendation we have for you this evening.
Thank you, Julie. So in the recommendation tonight, Josh talked a little bit about the custodial recommendation that we're bringing tonight. So he already mentioned that part, but I'll just reiterate what he said. So we're recommending that we hire 3 additional custodial staff to help with all the cleaning, the nightly cleaning and sanitizing of the schools. Those will be all 1-year positions, and they'll be paid at the contracted custodial rate. With that, the joint guidance also talked about that school districts should prepare to mitigate the effects of potential increases in teacher absenteeism that will likely happen next year. And so a lot of school districts are recommending full-time substitute teachers, which is what our recommendation is going to be tonight. So we're recommending hiring a full-time substitute teacher for every one of our elementary buildings, and 2 of them, 2 full-time subs at Harlem Middle School and 2 at Harlem High School, for a total of 13 full-time subs next year. It's a 1-year position. We're recommending that we pay those full-time subs a salary of $25,000 plus benefits. In the instance that a substitute would come with us and would verify that they already have existing insurance, instead of giving them $25,000 plus insurance, we recommend just giving them $30,000 with no insurance. Again, that's a 1-year. These are all 1-year positions, and the substitutes will be working just 170 student contact days. I did reach out to my HR group regionally to see who else was doing what. I did get a little bit of feedback that I'd like to share. Belvedere actually already has those positions in place. They just have had those, so they're going to continue those, obviously. Freeport, North Boone, and Rockford are all going to be recommending the same kind of additional staff for substitute teachers next year. So those are the ones that I heard from for sure, and that's why we're bringing, obviously the need for extra staffing this year. That's what we're bringing forward tonight. Does anybody have any questions on that part?
Are we competitive?
That's a very good question, Mike. So I think we are competitive. I did not many places want to really disclose how much they pay sometimes. So I don't always get a lot of feedback in that area. I do know that the districts who use the staffing agency, the Kelly Staffing Service for their substitutes, they're just hiring through those services. So they'll get likely paid at the substitute daily rate. Our rate is higher than that. And then Freeport is the only one who talked about putting those teachers on the teacher salary schedule at bachelor's plus 0 experience. I don't know where that's going to go. I don't even know if that's a full recommendation to that board yet, but we would definitely be competitive with this salary.
Okay, and with them being full-time subs, even in the school, what if we have more at the middle school or at the high school that are needed? Can we pull from elementary that they're sitting at?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question again. So if we happen to have a situation where a building is full and they have a sub sitting there not knowing what to do, which would be a very rare occasion, FYI. But
No, I don't.
If that did happen, we would definitely, part of the contract is we would send them to a building that we need help in.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions?
Are we giving any incentive to, say, prior teachers that have worked in the district?
Incentive as far as what goes to?
A little more increase to be the sub?
That is not part of the recommendation tonight. We just have the recommendation that's on the table.
I don't think they could with the retirement piece, could they?
If they're a former teacher and they're still subbing for us, they're likely retired, and they can only put in 110 total days in the district in a year.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, their retirement is compromised.
So we would
So-
still use them if
Yeah.
all of our subs are in use and we still have positions. Okay.
They'll be used, I'm sure, every day if they're willing to come. Some may not want to because of just because of the circumstances, but others, a lot of schools have a couple of former teachers who come and do their subbing. They just like that school. And so there's a lot of that.
And I think it was last board meeting that you guys approved the increases for all of our substitutes, including our retired teachers. So that's already in there too.
Okay.
If I could just say one more thing that's not related, because there's been a lot of questions about what happens if someone gets COVID and do they have to use their sick days. Julie, I hope it's okay that I quick mention that. So the FFCRA, which is the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act, if you guys just Google the FFCRA, it'll come up with a whole list of things that employers have to do. So to long story short, to answer that question, if you've worked for us for at least 30 days, employees are going to be entitled to up to 2 weeks of paid leave if they have to quarantine for reasons of COVID. And there's a list of qualifying reasons that they'll have to meet. And those would not go against their sick, vacation, or personal days. These are additional days for specific COVID purposes. That, or they would be entitled to 2 weeks at 2/3 of their pay if the employee is unable to work because of a bona fide need to care for someone else who has been affected by COVID, or if their childcare had to close down for reasons of COVID and they didn't have childcare. So we're going to be spelling all that out for staff in the booklet, but I just kind of wanted to be able to answer that a little bit. And on top of the FFCRA, on top of that, people would be entitled to regular FMLA as well. So I hope that answers the question, but in general, they're entitled to up to 2 weeks and they don't have to use their sick and personal days for that.
And Scott, that's federal legislation, and that money comes back to the district, correct?
Yes, I'd have to look into the exact, actually in that document, there is some specifications, but I don't want to say that 100% comes back, but some does come back. So I got to figure that out. I don't know if Josh has read more than I have on that, but he's shaking his head no, but we'll look into that for sure. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Scott? So then we have one voting item from my report this evening, and that's the recommendation for additional staffing due to the COVID-19 for 2020-2021. And that's what Scott just outlined. And that ends my report.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Morris. With that, we need a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item A without the addendum.
Motion. Second.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye.
You gotta go.
Okay, we need a motion and a second to approve the resolution declaring surplus property.
Motion.
Second.
Wait a minute. Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Oh, Mr. Barger.
Aye. Forgot me already.
Yeah.
Okay, can we get a motion and a second to approve first reading of policy update recommendations from June 22nd, 2020 Policy Committee meeting?
Motion.
Second.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan.
Aye.
Can we get a motion and a second to approve destruction of audio recordings more than 18 months old from January 2018 to December 2018?
Motion.
Second.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Can we get a motion and a second to approve the Rock Valley College Memorandum of Understanding?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye.
Can we get a motion and a second to approve the FY21 Consolidated District Plan?
Motion.
Second.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mr. Barger,
Aye. Can we get a motion and a second to approve to accept the May 2020 Treasurer's Report?
Motion.
second. Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Okay, can we get a motion and a second to approve an independent contractor agreement with Lynn Liston as an infant mental health consultant to provide consultation and training to parent educators, program leadership, and families for the FY21 school year at $125 an hour, not to exceed $3,000.
Motion.
second. Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
We get a motion and a second to approve an independent contract agreement with Lynn Liston, consultant, to provide consultation and professional development to the Preschool for All program staff and program leadership for the FY21 school year at $125 an hour, not to exceed $3,000.
motion.
Second.
Mrs. Meeks, aye. Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Can we get a motion and a second to approve additional staffing due to COVID-19 for 2020 and 2021?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan,
Aye.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks, aye.
Okay, Dr. Morris, any announcements and discussion?
Well, I do want to once again thank you, Mr. Barger, for all of your years of service here. Normally, we would send you off with cake because that is our tradition. And I'm very sorry that we weren't able to do that for you this year. So go have a cake on us somewhere.
Thank you very much.
I'm very sad we're not able to have our cake, but you know how that goes.
I like cake a lot too. Okay, with that, we do not have a closed session, correct? Did you want to say something, sir?
Yes, I did. I'd like to say something. I know that there's some planning going on for the graduation. And as the vice president, I would like to invite Larry to attend as the president for the graduation ceremony.
I appreciate that. I will let you know what I have going on that day and I will get back to you.
That would be great.
With that, we just need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Everyone have a great evening.
Good
You
luck,
too.
Larry.
Good luck, Larry.
Thank you.
You'll be greatly missed.
Thank you.